Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugged, aka White Boy Deep Voice, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Yes. So should I start dancing to some Happy Merchant music? I think that's right, the Happy Merchant. Man, what a day. We've had a lot to get into. Some housekeeping to start off right in the beginning. I think I figured out multi-streaming, actually, and so this should also be going to X as well, I believe. So we're trying that out. X also with YouTube, obviously. So if it goes successful on X, I might even open it up to Rumble as well and do the custom RTMP and all that stuff, all the backend stuff, obviously. And I do apologize for going so early today, streaming like 2 hours ahead of time from normal. Just have birthday plans, surprise stuff. Yeah, it's a Christmas miracle. YouTube finally notified you guys. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. We have more than 5 people here at the start. And you guys read the title, 8 billion undocumented Americans, the argument that Vivek Ramaswamy is going with, as he's obviously making news and headway for once again getting close to Christmas time and pushing for this idea that an American is essentially anybody who believes in America. And that's obviously retarded for very obviously retarded reasons. But what can I say? I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy, I think he sees Christmas lights, he sees the snow falling, and he cannot contain his urge to attack Americans. I mean, what else could you honestly say beyond what Vivek is pushing is an open war against the identity of what an American is? I mean, we are metaphorically in a war for what it is to be an American. And you have Vivek Ramaswamy leading the charge. Obviously, he's not one of the only ones, but he's somebody who's wearing the conservative in the Republican Party as a skin suit to obviously push these ideals. And we're getting close to the civic nationalism. So we'll spend some time looking at what he said there. We also have something that I found to be egregious, and I've not watched the full thing, but we will watch some of it together, which is 3 Jews and an Italian arguing over what an American is. And no joke, I kid you not. It was Ben Shapiro, Andrew Clavin, and I always forget her name, Satya Angar, whatever her name is, arguing essentially with Michael Knowles over what it is to be an American. And you have Ben Shapiro literally agreeing with what was put forward by Vivek. He was arguing that it's less about heritage and more about, the creed or the ideals, which the creed being just like, if you agree with what an American is or what the American creed is, there you go. And yeah, you can make fun of my appearance, dude. My beard looks super chopped today. I don't know. I was struggling with the gel, so I don't really care. It was fighting me. I fought back. I lost. It won. Here we are. I'm going to take these glasses off as well, too. Candace Owens, obviously being a big portion of the news, too. Candace Owens essentially scrapping, retracting, backing down of all of her takes on TPUSA. I covered that, obviously, in the video yesterday. But what can I really say beyond the fact that I do think that Nick Fuentes' kind of outlay of what he thinks went down with that meeting, I think is probably exactly what went down, maybe besides missing a few key details. And what I mean by that is obviously Candace Owens came out, I believe it's on Monday or Tuesday, and, she's dancing to this Israeli music. She's saying Shabbat Shalom. She's kind of almost openly mocking herself or mocking even a bit of her audience, mocking the whole Israel thing. And what she does is she backs away from a lot of the claims she made against TPUSA while also maintaining her skepticism that Tyler Robinson was the one who pulled the trigger. Nick Fuentes outlines this by saying that this would be exactly what you would expect Candace's position to be because they probably did come in with the lawyers. It was admitted by her and Erica and many other people involved. The lawyers were there, and they more than likely did present in front of Candace and were there to bear witness to the fact that they were presenting information to go, okay, so if you continue from this point, Candace, if you keep making these claims, knowing that we've shown you what we've shown you, we are going to push for the defamation. We're going to push for damages for all these claims you're making. And what she didn't see, though, was any more video evidence of the Tyler Robinson, shooting, which has been one of these through lines here. I think Jack Posobiec was even getting attacked for this as well, because he's one of these individuals who said, like, they've seen the footage, they've seen all this, and meanwhile, we get the admission from Erica that there is no other footage that the public's not seen. Candace Owens has also pushed for this as well, too, which I think is part of the reason why she's continuing on the element that she doesn't believe Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger, which makes sense, meaning that the lawyers were able to show things about Tyler Boyer and Andrew Colvett that she was pushing that aren't true, but what they didn't have was any evidence to the contrary. This has kind of been a through line, partly because of one of the cameras that was, taken down in the initial aftermath. But obviously that's a big event that's moving in more, Candace Owens obviously facing huge backlash from her own audience for that. Many people calling that she got the call, or just saying that she sold out. And some people even going so far as to say, like, now she's in on it, or she was a part of it from the beginning. There we go. Yeah. What are we doing on this side of 8 Mile? Come on now. I loved Eminem. I think Dirty or D12, maybe the Dirty Dozen, D12, was Eminem's best music, but that's a side point for a different day. Another crazy story that's kind of wild that's blowing me away, partly because I do, follow the NFL to a certain degree. It's like the only sports that I watch at all. And Puka Nacua is a receiver for the Los Angeles Rams, and he was with he's doing an IRL stream with Aiden Ross and I think Neon and a few other individuals. And no joke, you have Eric Swalwell is now asking for the Rams to drop Puka Nacua, and no joke, this is one of the best receivers in the NFL, because Aiden Ross, a Jew, had him do a happy merchant. Like they were like, for your next touchdown celebration, you should do this dance. And what were they doing? It was like something about with the football, but then they were doing the merchant at the end. And now you have Eric Swalwell calling for the Rams to drop Puka Nacua. I would wager the Rams would hoist up the literal swastika before they would drop Puka Nacua. But maybe that's just me because I pay attention to some of this stuff. That was some of a smaller story there. Nick also, while we're on the Candace and Nick thing, Nick specifically, there's another through line where I may make a bit of an enemy with Zeb Boykin. We'll cover his post about it. That there's a lot of people that are basically seething at some of his latest takes on men and their aspirations in terms of women and child rearing and having kids and the sentimentality, dude. Brother, I'm struggling today. But a lot of people are angry at what he said there. I think Zeb's position was the fact that he lacks the experience, and so his takes come across very aggressive or out of place or just general misses. I think Zeb said a major L. So we'll look at Zeb's post. We'll look at the actual video because I do actually agree with Nick on this, believe it or not. And then what's insane beyond that is obviously now we have maybe one of the more through-line stories. I say that all the time. I probably shouldn't. One of the other bigger stories here that's kind of developing in the background amidst all of this with Donald Trump saying, I'm a Jewish president. You have Mark Levin literally manhandling the guy. And what you have is now what we're seeing is supposedly the Brown University shooter it's now being reported allegedly that this MIT professor who was shot and killed, who was working closely with things related to nuclear science materials, that kind of program, is now supposedly being reported that these may potentially be linked between the Brown University shooter and the MIT professor. And what's unique about the MIT professor is the fact that Israel has now publicly and openly been saying that they are looking into the MIT professor because they do believe there's evidence, and they're claiming that they do believe Iran was behind the killing of that MIT professor. And so you have all this kind of building together, and then also this is off the back of what happened on, I think somebody corrected me, it's Bondi Beach, the mass casualty event that took place in Australia. And obviously multiple things all gathering up at once, the attacks on Jews, first day of Hanukkah. And parallel to that on the other side is that we have, for one, Israel going into 2024, they 5 times their Hasbara budget. They went from doing a little over 20 million to about 120 million. So that was a 5 times increase on the Hasbara budget going into 2024. No joke, Redacted reported, I caught this late right before I went live, Redacted's reporting that they 5 times it again. So now the Hasbara budget is going from 120 million to like 700 and something million. So everybody, if you're not already seeing pro-Israel content on your feeds, get ready to experience nothing but pro-Israel content on your feeds. And that, I think, is twofold. One, I think they're losing the narrative, so this is just part of the idea of they have to keep it ubiquitous. They have to keep pro-Israel content everywhere, make it toxic and untenable almost. Secondarily, I do think between the MIT professor and all the way that most of them have talked about it since then, I see them, but mostly, American Jews and just Jews around the world, does make you and give you this feeling that they are trying to really ramp it up the gears of war to go back to beefing with Iran. And that's some of the thoughts that I had just seeing all of that overall. One video we will watch here in a second too is this open admission that we're going to begin hunting down anti-Semites here in America. And then additionally to that, the ADL leader, Mr. Jonathan Greenblatt, or whatever they call him, CEO, leader, whatever, speaker guy who just talks about Jews all the time, he now said that X users need to be held personally responsible for the cesspit of anti-Semitism that has arose. It is just, it gets better every day, increasingly so. I actually crashed out earlier today because I saw, one of the first things I saw when I clicked on X going through the feed, no joke, is a video about a woman complaining about anti-Semitism being pushed by white nationalists, paired with the guy across the aisle arguing, wow, but what about those dirty sand people? And it is just, everything about it is just so artificial. Like if there ever was theater, it would be News Nation's 8-minute segment they had earlier today talking about how what's more dangerous, Muslims or white nationalists. And it is just, it's getting picture perfect, if you will. And so with that all being said, we have a lot to get into. I think we will start with obviously the American, the Vivek aspect. And so without further ado, let's get rolling. So the first thing I'm going to put up on screen here for you guys is a portion of what Vivek had said. Now, this is just, again, maybe more of a succinct and concise way he put it compared to what was in the article. Again, the article was it's basically a puff piece from the New York Times, giving, obviously a bit of credibility to Vivek Ramaswamy, and that's what a lot of people are reacting to here. And so what he has here, and I'll just read it from what he says, Vivek Ramaswamy Post writes, American identity isn't a scalar quality that varies based on your ancestry. It's binary. Either you're an American or you're not. You're an American if you believe in the rule of law, in freedom of conscience, in freedom of expression, in colorblind meritocracy, in the U.S. Constitution, in the American dream, and if you are a citizen who swears exclusive allegiance to our nation, that's the truth, and it's why I wrote this piece. Now, believe it or not, there is one element that he got right here, and it's just this small portion right here at the top. It says either you're an American or you're not, and that is correct. What is incorrect is literally everything else that is written there. And so what we got in response to that was a few different pieces. For one, well, this is the first thing I would actually post, is one of these more viral posts that's been going around, which is, I believe the first one I saw was literally a guy from Germany, and he says, I'm a German from Germany who has never stepped foot on U.S. soil, and I am more American than Vivek Ramaswamy. The banger post, and it was circulated and got a lot of likes. And there was many sentiments like that were pushed, and I completely agree. The American ethos is uniquely tied to European descent. That can't be, you can't separate those. You can't. And beyond that, I mean, if you just look at the basic level of history, you don't have to dig very far to understand who this nation was for, who it was built by. But that leads me to the second element, and this is kind of where I'm at with it. I am where Sam Hyde was at months ago, which was, I'm not even going to begin to have a conversation with an Indian and have an argument about what an American is. Vivek Ramaswamy should not even be invited to the table where that discussion should be had, because why would he? He's not an American, and we all understand this. And so, just like Sam Hyde put it, I'm not interested in listening to an Indian what makes an American. And I think that does need to be the hard line that's pushed for a lot of people. I've seen Matt Walsh kind of put forward a bit of an argument about heritage versus creed. I'm not doing that. In fact, I find it disrespectful that he thinks that he's even allowed to engage us with this conversation. I mean, think of the audacity to insert yourself as an anchor baby and say, I'm here equally at the table, 50-50, me and you, and we're going to have a conversation about what it is to be an American. Knowing that, for one, Vivek's dad literally still isn't a citizen, and so take that with a grain of salt, but I do believe that to be true. And his mom got like the citizenship like later after she had him in the country. And the bigger thing here is what it really kind of means as we're going into the fact that Vivek Ramaswamy is ultimately positioned in a spot where he very well could become the governor of Ohio. Now, I do think with Casey the car guy entering the race, it will eat votes away that would have otherwise went to Vivek because they would have just been opposing Amy Acton, the Democrat. But that's kind of where we are. Forgive me, I accidentally pressed something on my phone. I shouldn't have. That sucks. Anyways, the point being, though, is based off of what Vivek Ramaswamy is posing, is that potentially everyone in the world could be an American. If everybody in the world simply started believing in the freedom of expression and in colorblind meritocracy, if they believed that the U.S. Constitution was a document that should be honored, and they believe that, you know, you should work and have we essentially, everybody is an American. So what does that mean? It means that an American is almost nothing. It means that the identity of an American almost has zero definition to it. It's simply like, do you believe? And it kind of drops it down to a level of being less blood related and more so something like a religion, something that you can adopt, something that anybody, as long as they were showing the right things, can believe in, and all of a sudden you can become that. And and let's be honest, I think it's very commonsensical that being an American is not a religion. You know, being Japanese is not a religion. Being Chinese is not a religion. There's no amount of believing there's no amount of going in Japan and believing in the red sun that makes me Japanese. And it's obvious, and everybody knows this who's in chat, that it only goes one way. But the hard line needs to be had. Like, this is the line in the sand. It is Vivek needs to shut the fuck up about what it is to be an American, because he's not one. And the longer this conversation goes on, the more it will encourage people to get very, very, very angry. The contempt will grow, because it is such a offensive insult and spitting in the mouth of every person who actually is an American for Vivek Ramaswamy to tout this. And I would go so far as to say, like, he's just done altogether. What he added in there too, that I've not seen a lot of people talk about, is the fact that he basically says, if you disagree with him, you're not an American. Who the fuck are you, Vivek Ramaswamy? And forgive me for cursing, but here's the thing, like, the anger, I cannot find a way that could articulate just the rage that it lights in my soul. That Vivek is pushing this, and in some areas is being like applauded. Like, oh yes, now again, partly because organized Jewry is pushing for this too. Hence, we'll see with Ben Shapiro here. But enough of that. Let's just go to the fact, and I want everybody to see this too. I know you probably have already seen this, but it's just a short clip here. And you can see the desperation in Vivek as he's trying to claim his birthright citizenship. Him being an anchor baby is no different than the woman that's interviewing him, who is actually born here from Americans who were born here down a long... It's just aggressive. So take a watch of this video here.
I believe in being consistent about my policies where...
So your father is not a citizen of the United States?
He's not.
Okay. And your mother, when did your mom take the citizenship test? Was it before or after you were born?
After I was born.
After you were born. Okay.
After years of being in this, following the legal process of becoming a naturalized citizen, she followed it through the legal process. And
so you gained citizenship through birthright then?
Well, but you gain citizenship through birthright citizenship in that sense too, right? I mean, every American. So what I want to do is revive a vision of citizenship where every kid who enjoys...
I'm sorry, just to backtrack. So your father is not a citizen,
They came to this country legally. I believe in...
How does that make any sense, right? Like, on two ends. One, to go to his dad a little bit, they came here legally. You were born here. So, like, at the very minimum, it implies the dad's been here for 40 years and it still is not a citizen of the country. In what way, in what literal way is that following the legal process, right? Like, you mean to tell me you were an undocumented non-citizen who's been here for 40 years? Yeah, bro, we're launching Vivek into the sun. Launching Vivek and his entire country into the sun. And then the second element too, I'm just the same as you. No, I'm sorry, what? This woman didn't like hurriedly jump across a border to give birth in some random hospital using their funds, right? Probably off the back of U.S. funded taxpayer dollars to get the procedure done through in the first place. It's a scam. But you should expect nothing less from the person whose literal entire net wealth was built off of a scam from some bullshit pharmaceutical Alzheimer drug that he lied about nonstop. And the terrifying thing, though, is the fact that somebody else, though, and this is a kind of a sidebar here, you look at James Fishback, that's somebody who I find to be, their cadence is very, very, very similar. Him and Vivek's cadence is very, very, very similar. Now, James Fishback, I'm somebody I'm a bit more reserved on as of right now, but Vivek's, he's done, dude. It's got to be done. And to think about that too, like that we have some random YouTuber, I hate to say random as if he's like irrelevant, but you know, we have Casey the car guy, he's looking at this and he's like, I have to run. I have to literally run. He's like, my options in front of me to take the governorship from my state of Ohio is either an Indian who wants to wage war on American identity and basically be the next continuation of the elimination and the genocide of white people. And it's just in the lens of American white people. And second to that, on the other side of it, is Amy Acton. Now, granted, she's a white woman, but no, she's not actually. She's Jewish. And so when Casey the car guy's looking at this and he's going, it can't be like this. It literally just can't be like this. And hence, he's running. And so I'm putting full support behind Casey the car guy. I mean, it's getting to the point where I literally don't even care if he was pushing full blown, like progressive policy, like, you know, Bernie Sanders. It's gotten to the point where I'm taking my own side. I'm going to vote for the straight, heterosexual white man who did not come here 2 days ago. I'm going to vote for the white, or the Indian man, I guess I should say. I'm going to vote for the white man. I'm going to vote for the white man who works on cars and build a diesel engine. That's who I'm going to vote for. Yes, make sure you smash the like button, or otherwise you probably are a little gay. But, you know, I'm not going to judge. I mean, only God can judge, man. So smash the like button or not. God will know. No, just messing. That's so gay, corny. So, you know, to extend this, though, this is the same spot Vivek has been in. He's been pushing it. And like I said at the beginning, there's must be something unique about Christmas, or he sees the snow and he sees, like, you know, he sees Christmas lights and he's just like seething. He's like, these white people think they own America. He's like, look at all these Christians and their Christmas trees, right? He's like, because what are we doing here? How are we about to run into a back-to-back Christmas crash out from Vivek Ramaswamy? What else could be encouraging this at the same time? You know, he can feel the hyperborea around him. He was like, he immediately becomes an enemy. It's so sad. And if you see anybody still supporting Vivek Ramaswamy, they are traitors and they are enemies and they need to be treated as such. But to continue here, though, the video I wanted to connect this to is the fact that in the same vein, Ben Shapiro, along with a few other people, I think, well, Ben Shapiro and another Jew, and a gay Italian actually had a conversation. And let me find some misrepresentation for myself in there. It doesn't exist. But here we have the Israeli Wire having a conversation, pushing not identically what Vivek was saying, but Ben Shapiro was clearly pushing for a creed argument over heritage argument. And so without further ado, take a listen to this. You know, and I'm just noticing these patterns, right? You know, if you listen to Nick, you know, pay attention to how many times there's conversations that you think are happening between people, but then you trace them back to it and you go, wow, there wasn't an American there. Gay Italian. Is Frank Italian? Really? I didn't know that. He needs to step his game up, dude. Thought he was German or something. But here it is. It's 6.5 minutes long. We don't need to watch the whole thing, but just take a listen. It's just right off the rip in the first about minute and a half. You will hear the difference. And he is kind of alone in his argument there, Michael Knowles.
If you have a purely creedal idea of identity, then, I don't know, half of the people we went to college with would not be American, even if their parents came on the Mayflower. And, if we have this, I don't know, we don't really have a purely racial basis for America, certainly haven't in a long time. And so what do you do about the problem? What do you do about the total collapse of social solidarity that this problem represents?
Well, I'm for assimilation. I'm for
I think that we are, in fact, a creedal country, and there is no other definition of Americanism that tends to hold historical water. The notion that we are, a heritage-based country, meaning that you're more American because your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents got here, as opposed to your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents got here. That is going to be a very, very difficult proposition.
I don't know. I mean, what does John Jay say in Federalist 2? In Federalist 2, he says, I take it as a mark of providence that he doesn't discount the credo, but he says we all come from the same ancestors. We all had the same experience of the revolution. We all believe in the same religion, roughly. It's kind of heterodox religion.
And that was. I mean, Michael, that was true in 1785 when the country was founded. And let's just be clear that if we were actually going to go by that standard, if we were going to go by the full heritage.
So I could play more, but it will cause me to crash out in ways I will never recover from. But did you catch it? Did you catch how they're all laughing at the fact of like, it's not white anymore, is it? My question then would be like, so why isn't it like that anymore? What changed? Who pushed for those changes? What lobbies were in the ear of these different individuals while this legislation was pushing? What brought about the Civil Rights Act and the Hart-Celler Act? And to act as if like there was this rate of immigration that was happening in like the late 1700s is anything comparable to like what started happening like in the early 40s and then mid 60s. So they're more than happy to acknowledge the fact of like it was like that then, and that was clearly the standards then. But well, we just know we can't go back to that. Why? Why is that not the standard? What argument do you have for that not being the standard? What argument would you even begin to have to say that we couldn't push to go back to that standard? Like, and it just rubs me the wrong way because here they are. They're just laughing at them. And I think Mike was kind of taken aback at this, which is like, well, yeah, of course it was like that back then. Like, so let's maybe get to why it's not like that now. And so I didn't listen to that full clip, and I'm sure they probably go a bit more into detail there. But that's kind of where we are, which is like you have creed versus heritage. And the reality is if we're going to honor what was actually written down in some of the founding documents, as well as all of the supporting materials that help continue to inform the decisions of what built this great nation, well, then it would be free white men of European descent. I mean, it's very, very, very clear. But again, to even entertain half of these arguments, you have to engage those who are intellectually dishonest. And you can see it's rife between all these conversations that's happening. It's rife between almost all conversations that's happening, regardless of what category or what topic or what political policy, any of it. It is just people being disingenuous or being intellectually dishonest. And partly because I think a lot of these people are relying on clip farmers or things being taken out of context. But you know where my line is? I'm not going to argue with a Jew about what an American is. I'm not going to argue any further about who should be allowed in America, what America is supposed to be. And I think that needs to be more of the stance that gets taken, which is like, in fact, you're the one who needs to make the argument, actually. Vivek is the one that needs to make the argument. Vivek needs to make an argument of why the founding fathers were wrong, of why the original Federalist Papers weren't right. You're the one who's going and making the change from what is. So the burden of that argument needs to be on the people making the argument, not on us to just go along with it. And if we disagree, we're not an American. But again, that's kind of where that conversation is. And so basically right now it's a battle of like, well, will conservative men like find their cojones? Like, will they stand up, or will they get browbeaten by their wives, women, and children that surround them into saying, well, that you can't say that's racist. We can't go back to a white majority. What would then apply? They're just going to deport people? We better start deporting people before mass deportations becomes the moderate option. And we are rapidly getting there. I mean, you continually, I mean, just think about that, right? Just think about, those nasty videos of like, I'm sure you guys have seen this one of like the African family where like they slap a bunch of like shit food on the table and they all are eating like with their hands and like it's like there's no silverware and like they're eating with their fingers, they're licking it, there's spit flying everywhere. So imagine if one of those people got close to you with their disgusting hands and they flicked it on your face. That is metaphorically like what these people are doing. And you would be hard pressed to find many people who could stand being spit upon before they react to it. And this isn't a call for anything. It is to say, let's not forget the framing here and the way this is coming across. Let's not forget the perception of what is occurring here. I'm sorry if you're eating. You are actively declaring war on our identity. You are actively trying to usurp our heritage, our inheritance of what our ancestors did to get this nation wrested from the hands of tyranny. And if you think we are going to allow an Indian with some greasy ass palms and his bare feet to sit on a goddamn stool and tell some cucked woman what an American is and we're all going to go along with it, I got something to tell you. Because it's not happening that way. And the longer they try to force and strong arm this bullshit argument, the more that people are going to stand up and we're going to get real racial real quick, as if we're already not occurring that way. So that would be my piece there with the Vivek aspect. Moving on from that though, because I've already spent 30 minutes on it, unfortunately, and it will have to be a shorter show because I do have to go do this birthday dinner thing. So I do apologize, but I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow with the video, and then also later on in the day, we will be having a conversation on NAV creators with Adam the Angler, and we're going to be talking about, some more of the Charlie Kirk situation, Candace Owens, his call on the Tim Pool residency, the shooting, and also he was the individual who had the sheriff show up to his home or residence in Texas because of his anti-Israel posts. And so just to get the housekeeping out there, I do apologize. I'm getting ragged by the family. They said, "Oh, it's your birthday. You have to go do these things. You have to go say, hey, what's up to the family that, you have to go, you got to do the cards and the smiles and the stuff." And it's like, every so often I do have to be a real person. I have to show up. I have to pretend I like blacks. Just a joke, dude. Just a joke. So one of the other things that I thought was pretty revealing that came out, we don't spend too much time on it, but I will put it on screen so people know what I'm talking about, is this clip that came out from Owen Shroyer and this random Zionist. And I won't really play it, but just put it on screen here. I think there's music in this one. And it came from here. And so what we ended up getting was this weird kind of debate that occurred between Owen Shroyer and whoever this, I don't even know what I'd call him. Just pro-Israel guy, and they get into this insanely weird argument, and then it turns into, very quickly, you can see just how intellectually out of his grade that the pro-Israel guy is, because he continually keeps pushing this thing Owen lies all the time about Israel. Owen lies all the time about Israel, over and over and over again. And thank you very much for the super chat, man. I appreciate that. Forgive me, I thought I was going to say. But Owen keeps asking. He's like, what did I lie about? Name one lie. If I lie all the time, and you have this argument that I'm like, I push all these things. He's like, then name one. Then tell me one lie. And the guy literally can't. He literally is like, he starts stumbling over himself, and then he has one of the worst Freudian slips ever. And he goes, well, I'm lying. And then that's kind of how the clip ends. And that's kind of the point here, which is how are there so many of these kind of 30, 40-year-old dudes who they have the guns on their t-shirts, they got the snake tattoos on their arms, they're so masked, and they're literally the most retarded goy slop eating individuals I've ever seen in my entire life. Absolutely getting one-shotted by random MAGA accounts. And then when push comes to shove, they try to make an argument against Owen Shroyer. they're made to look like absolute buffoons. But let me get the super chat before it disappears on me. Groy Big Flick says it's my birthday too. Hey, happy birthday, brother. Mine was on the 16th. But because of how I'm working, how everything's going, it's really just like birthday on Monday, birthday stuff on Tuesday. And to be quite honest, I have literally zero social battery. So for me, it's like, you know, that meme of Ben Affleck. That's me after I walk in the front door of a restaurant. Like, but happy birthday to you, brother. And he says, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, Dub Stalin. That's funny. That's hilarious. And so, you know, not to give any kind of particular endorsement there, but to say it, like they're losing, and they're losing really badly. And I don't know if this guy's a $7,000 club. I would doubt it. I don't know who he is. But the point there is, it's inevitable what's going to come out of this. Their arguments are indefensible, but the Hasbara will only get worse. And like I said earlier, with Redacted reporting it, we were going to get another. We already got it 5 times last year. Now 5 times the 5 times. Now we're at a 25 times multiplier on the Hasbara funding. So expect, I would imagine, expect your feeds to be more pro-Israel. Expect there to be all of a sudden more pro-Israel influencers. Next thing you know, we're going to see Dr. Disrespect, and he's going to be like, "Hold on, guys, and now for my sponsorship," and it's gonna cut to, and it's going to be like, Islam is everywhere. Muslims are building smart cities near you, and it's going to be like, oh, Lord have mercy, they got him too. Not, and this is, I'm just saying, like, it's not like I think the Dr. Disrespect would do something like that, but to say, like, expect more people who you wouldn't normally be seeing pro-Israel content from probably jump up here in the next couple of days, or next couple of days, in the coming year, as the funding gets allocated and they decide where they want to spend it and who they want to push it to, whether it's YouTube, X, differing advertisers, marketers, etc. Moving on to where I think I may make an enemy, not to make an enemy, but to actually disagree with Zeb. I want to go hard segue. We're going to cut super hard, actually, over to this post that I caught from Zeb Boykin here. And Zeb Boykin, if you're not familiar, Zeb Boykin is another co-founder of NAV at the New America Vision. And me and him go back and forth on a lot of stuff, but we also agree on a lot of stuff too. Thank you very much for the super chat. He says, it is your birthday. That out of the way. These people you're talking about make jingoism their entire personality without understanding that what it is while cucking themselves to multiculturalism. Right. And that's kind of like a little bit, you know, the shorthand there with people being one-shotted, which I do think that's just like some people just like they can't. I think they've literally been indoctrinated to the point where their body has a literal defense mechanism to it. I mean, think about it. This is how a lot of people have like this cognitive dissonance. I mean, for me, waking up to the red pill was like really difficult, but I say difficult, but it was more so like, it was kind of the unpeeling of the layers of like the onion of like all the different levels of like, you know, you have to believe this propaganda, and this propaganda is connected to this propaganda. And you keep, you know, you peel back and you're like, holy shit, it's Jews everywhere. But the point being is that's one of the elements that I don't really know how to contend with. And I think that there is a little hardcore like IQ barrier for a lot of people. And what I mean by that is just think about it. Like think about the average upbringing and think about a person who maybe doesn't have like a strong father figure in their life. This is somebody who is basically being raised by a woman, which means they're also being raised by their iPhone and the TV screen. In addition to that, you get somebody who's, you know, no strong father figure, maybe nobody in the family is even politically inclined. Well, then they're left to their own devices, and their own devices are literally all the slop that they're going to be fed through whatever device they have. At first, it's probably a gaming console or a gaming system. So for a lot of kids, it's ideas introduced via video games, whether it's on console or PC. That continues through elementary school. You get teachers pushing things. All of a sudden, you know, some guy will come in to give his presentation for a class or something, and you don't really know what it's about, but then they're probably pushing some, you know, some of these more global homo ideas, even if they're not like, you know, pure indoctrination of, you know, pro-Semitism, but they're on things like feminism and progressivism and multiculturalism. And you just keep going down the line. And then for some of these people, I mean, think about it. I mean, think about a guy who maybe even halfway gets politically inclined, and then he starts listening to Ben Shapiro. And then he listens to Ben Shapiro for 3.5 years. He really likes his content. He gets fully bought into the Daily Wire. And think about how they would interact then with Nick Fuentes at that point. Say they'd gone their whole life without ever interacting with anybody like Nick or anybody who's even in that side or in the dissident right. Well, to them, they have years of propaganda built inside of their bodies and in their brains and their minds. They would have an automatic, like it's, white blood cells, automatic defense mechanism. They hear something that's racist and they go, whoop, whoop, alarms. And they go, it's my American duty to make you not say that. Right? And it's where you get the canceling, the pressure. It's why you can see, even if it's not the loudest people in the room or the screaming minority of progressive Antifa, everyone else still reinforces it by proxy of most people just bystand. They don't speak out, or otherwise they'll make maybe smaller concessions of like, yeah, I think maybe we should do that. Or, well, should we really make enemies? Why don't we all kind of get along? And so obviously this leads to people being unable to contend with these ideas such as race realism, because they are a complete 180 and they assert what the other side says is sinful, sinful, using their dogmatic language. We pose as truths. And so when you get to that level, this is kind of to the point of what Tucker Carlson was actually spot on about a year or two ago, which is that like, it's not what people are being told to is a wrong or a lie, or it was like a little bit was tweaked here. It was, for most people, what they are presented with is literally a complete anti-truth. It is the truth literally completely inverted and wrapped around into a 180 of what it is. And so that way, when somebody comes across with the truth, they have such a reaction to it, because it's not even just that it's a little bit different than what they were told. It's the complete opposite of what they were told. Hence why you see like a lot of this crashing out, the psychosis of people are like having psychotic breaks, all of it. And it's because so much of, the sociology of what happens in America is already artificial. It's propagated by a lot of money. And a lot of people don't even know where the money's coming from. Hence, this kind of hands-off, truth information system. And it's sad, but it is what it is. But to go to this video, though, again, hard segue here. This was a clip that came out from Nick's stream last night, because he's wearing the yellow tie. And this is a continuation of, I believe, what he had said, not last night, but a stream before that, where he was kind of going hard on what I would consider the archetype of man who has basically made his end, what's the word? His end future vision for himself begins and ends with being a married man and a father. And so before I get into that, obviously Zeb's here in chat with us too, so he can obviously say what he wants to. But I do agree in essence, though, with the broad point, which is that as a man, your primary ambitions, your primary aspirations should be greater than those basal instincts. So, for example, for one, I think it's very easy just in the Christian worldview that when you have Paul, right, how does Paul talk about the way that he organized his life? And this is a very easy kind of concession, and you can do it with nuns as well, and other kind of individuals, popes. I can't remember which all different roles and titles have to be celibate and etc., or not engaging and having families. But that should be what comes with you reaching your end goal. And so I believe that Nick had kind of outlined this by the fact of men want to be sleeping on the floor. Men should be wanting to sleep on the floor in their factories until they built things from the ground up, or, wanting to do these very hardcore things. And I agree. This is this is where part of the element where I am at, and part of what I have to combat all the time is I do want to spend as much as possible time as I can. Hell, I would be in this room 24/7 making content and looking at things if I felt my wife would be able to handle things on her own. And so we'll go to the video. I'll show you what Zeb's contention is on this too, because I do think that some things are being missed here. So this is the clip here. So the clip is, and again, this is almost an extension of what he had mentioned on a stream before. So we're missing some of it. I don't want to cover the whole thing because we'll probably revisit this on the Groiper Report on Saturday, I would imagine. But here's the clip. I'll play it first because he is responding to a super chatter, obviously being a bit provocative.
Alex Jones,
I love the
$20. More political talk, less relationship talk. No one is watching your show for advice on relationships and women.
Oh, boy.
Last night you said about husbands who fantasize about taking your kids places.
More
bro,
money.
What are you on? Believe it or not, having a family means you will have to interact with your children. Get outside more.
Oh, the seethe is more money, less seethe. Just give me the money, dipshit. Don't seethe. You don't need to seethe about the show. You know what? We don't need to hear that. What? We're gay because we play with our kids? Sentimentality, yeah, fuck all of you. Sentimentality is gay. Sentimentality is not a masculine virtue. You cannot do this trad masculine LARP and then be a sentimentalist and say, honey, I break for our kids. I just want, like, fantasizing about this domestic life. No, you're a girl. No, a real man wants to be on a ship in the ocean shooting cannons at the French. A real man wants to be in the jungles of Africa killing the natives, building a railroad. The real man wants to sleep on the floor of his factory as he builds an empire of iron and steel. A real man wants to run this country with an iron fist, sign execution warrants with no time for any of that rom-com stuff, with no time for my kid's recital. That's what it is to be a real boss, a real man. So, yeah, I'm sorry that bothers you. I'm sorry that you're like a low-test girl. I'm sorry you're in a lesbian relationship with your wife and you want to sit around and braid each other's hair until you get your period at the same time, talking about our kids or whatever. But there are some real niggas left that just want to drive around the city looking around. You know, some of us still have that in us.
So that's essentially the gist, right? Is this kind of, responding to the super chatter. I think the super chatter was responding in essence, largely not saying, I don't listen to you for your relationship takes, Nick. I listen to you for your geopolitical takes, your politics takes. Probably just largely just saying because they disagree with what he says about the just women in general. And peace out, Appalachian Goy. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate seeing you in here, man. You're coming a regular very quickly. So let's see. So let's go to what Zeb is. Before I continue, I'll read off of Zeb's take here. Put it on screen. So Zeb says, no nuance, major L. Life experience evades him and it always will. Masculinity is the control of emotions, not the absence. Self-control, temperance is the master virtue for a reason. And I would actually agree that self-control probably does reign at, I haven't thought about this in full, but I would largely agree. I would say, self-control, self-mastery, self-discipline does sit at the top. I would say nearly at the pinnacle of what it is to be a man. I would agree with Zeb on those elements. But I don't think what Nick is proposing here is in opposition to that either. And in fact, if anything, I would say there's a greater degree of self-control and self-mastery that would need to be had for someone who's in the position of Paul. And I think that's literally in his writing in the Bible. It's kind of like what his plea is to people. Like, listen, if you feel like you cannot rein your sexual desires, your sexual urges in, then please do pursue marriage. And he says, I do wish it that all of you could be as me, or could be like me, and could, in Nick's words, like be beyond sex. So I don't think that, to me, I don't think that they are. You can have one and you can't have the other. I think you can have both. I think you can both be a man who is self-mastered, has self-discipline and self-control, and also make it your primary duty, your primary goal in life being something greater than family. Greater than, and it's not to say it's not important, but I would wager that a man's mission in life does give birth to everything else. I would actually argue that a man whose mission isn't greater than a family and just owning a home and having kids, ultimately they fail before they reach that goal. And in fact, I would say it probably does fall a bit more in line with that kind of thinking. If you do make that your primary desire, not to say you shouldn't want those things, but if your primary goal is simply to have a home and just have a family, it's like, well, what end goal really is that? And so I maybe Zeb disagrees with that, but I do think that in an era where you can literally the feminism, I can whisk it out of the air. To me, is this is why I support people like Andrew Tate as much as I disagree with him. We are in an era right now where we need corrections for feminism, and I don't even care how out of bounds the masculinity has to come from. we need course correction that pulls us away from feminism. And so I don't think Nick and Andrew Tate are even close in terms of, prescription for masculinity. I think they're actually literally completely at odds. But I do think the overbearing need from what we need from men is a stronger push to be more masculine, to pull themselves away from this kind of, attachment to the trad life, lifestyle, if you will. So I wouldn't say that's major at all. And I wouldn't even say that you need life experience at all to even make those points. I think if anything, it takes a certain kind of man to know that they are able to resist, sexual temptation and desires, and can push for something beyond that or be greater. But also at the same time, you don't need to forego a family to have a desire. Like for me, like my goal was like, I want to knock off the Daily Wire. I want to be not that I want to be looked at, but like I'm positioning myself in a place where like I'm hoping the end goal is that I can at least put myself in a position where I can be able to use my influence, push my ideas, which aren't even my ideas, like the ideas I agree with, America First principles, Christian nationalism, and also be able to be in a position where you can also funnel money or bring people on, promote people, become a platform. Like those are kind of my end goals. And like, to me, I view those as higher goals than simply giving birth to children and having and running a successful home, family at home. But that'd be my take. Maybe that's a bit too nuanced for a lot of people. Zeb says, as well as I do, that your entire mentality changes as soon as you have a kid. I wouldn't disagree. And he says it's akin to the boomer not being capable of Gen Z's situation. But I don't think that the argument there is that, you need to have children to peddle influence, or, what's the word? What's the argument there is this kind of like having a stake in the nation type argument? I guess for me, it would be more so the fact of like, I don't think having kids or not having kids makes the mark of if someone's, intelligent or if their ideas are, worthy. I agree with him in the broad sense. I agree with you in the smaller sense. I do think you would probably get a stronger, more nuanced, less intense, more wide kind of positioning, postulation from somebody who does have kids. But that's also why I think that Nick is a very important tool and asset here, which is he is somebody who's not attached to any of that. And I think that that's part of the problem in the conservative movement is we do have too many guys who are too tightly tied at the neck to their wife and kids, and it dictates too much of the decisions that they make. This is why I think there's too much of men pushing out that, well, I can't do this. I got to because it's too risky for my wife and kids. And I'm not saying to put your wife and kids in danger, but too many times people fall back on that as an excuse to literally do nothing. And it's like, well, listen, dude, like whether you take a risk and that endangers your family or not, understand that the longer we all sit here and do nothing, the more it is that you will be dead and your children will be dealing with these problems while you are buried 6 feet in the ground. And in fact, you can't do anything at that point. And now it's worse for them because you shielded from them the whole time. And you thought maybe there's a green grass on the other side if we keep voting harder. Like to me, it's like our back's up against the wall. And I think that, to me, that's always one thing that's kind of rubbed me the wrong way is how many of these guys say like, well, I would do that, but like, it's too risky to my family. Because it's like, listen, like I already feel bad enough when people say that to me. And it's like, trust me, I don't want that. But understand, I feel like there's a greater risk in not saying anything at all. So maybe we would disagree on that. But the point being is, listen, somebody's got to do it. and in that argument, though, using that argument, would somebody like Nick not be the best choice if he doesn't have family or kids? If he's solely the only one being targeted, the only one taking on the risk. And even at that, who's to say they wouldn't go after his parents? Who's to say even if I didn't have a family, they wouldn't target my friends? They wouldn't target my parents. So is the argument that the only person that can actually take a risk reasonably is someone who's like literally has no friends and doesn't exist at all? I mean, like that to me, it's like there's no logic there. And to say that because you have a family of kids, you can't take risk is like, I'm sorry. Like that flies in the face of everything that built this nation. Like, I am sorry to tell you that. Like our founding fathers, like literally took on those challenges. Some of them, as it's written, were betrayed by their own wives, were betrayed by brothers, were betrayed by sons, were betrayed. You're going to have to take a risk, dude. You either believe in it or you don't. And sometimes I do sit here and think, really, I don't think blood is thicker than water. But with that all being said, and this wasn't a dig at Zeb at all, it's just something that I'd already seen there, because I probably do have bigger disagreements in terms of like the marital lifestyle at all. It just maybe some more of those broader points there, but I thought it was a good point of contention. Maybe something we could talk about on Sunday. But again, enough with that. Only got about 5 minutes until I do have to bounce out of here. I do appreciate it. 95 people watching, 2 hours out of my time slot. Like, oh man. Which is funny. Let me pull this up here from Zeb again. He says, I would agree that the one without the wife and kid have an easier choice to push the envelope, but then turning around and saying that it's gay in a lesbian relationship is detrimental. Well, I think that, well, here's the thing. I don't think that he is, as somebody who is, no, I can't leave. I think she's responding to the super chatter though. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's responding to the super chatter, like he's responding to an archetype in his head, which is like the wife guy. He's like, nobody gets to make fun of my wife, right? Like, I think that's who in essence he's responding to, especially because it's like, as someone who himself has made many, many claims and pushes of just saying like, listen, I got to figure out how to get married too. I think he even recently made points about that, about, you know, it's just difficult and he's not allowed privacy because everybody's asking for it. And so that to that end, I would understand too. But I mean, largely, listen, I agree with him on that thing. I think there is a huge problem with conservative, you know, wife guys, which I do think they do place an exuberant amount of emphasis. Man, I cannot talk. On, you know, worshiping your wife at home. And that's the way I would put it. Worshiping her, you know, sacrificing literally everything for her gain and happiness and goals. And to me, that flies in the face of just logic in general, right? It's because if the goal is like in 5 years, if this man sleeps on the floor in his factory and he builds this company, he can build a huge, he can build something great and massive that will give generational wealth for years to come for his legacy and his family. Or he can work at Sears and get off at 5 and be home every night to see his family, struggling to make ends meet the entire time, while also struggling to be able to put anything and funnel anything into his college fund for his 2 children that he can barely afford. I mean, like, to me, like that's the assessment I'm making, which is like, I do think there's a lot of people who would tell you, and I even got it in my own family, of not taking risks, of doing something easy. Right? Doing something where it's like, you know, it's not about you anymore. It's about your wife and kids. Sacrifice it all. And I do think there's some nuance that could be explored there. This is probably a good topic. We can save it for a later point in time. Listen, Zeb's got to make sure the wife's happy at home. No, I'm just kidding, man. But with that, I appreciate you guys greatly. I probably will go ahead and sign off, man. Again, one thing I guess I would point news to at is the fact, if you look up from Sovereign Bra, there is a push that to hunt down anti-Semites. I guess to wrap it up too, one thing I would also make mention of here before I walk away or tap out is, you guys might remember, like in 2016 through 2020, like through today. Yeah, Sunday'd be perfect, Zeb, if you want to do it on Sunday. Through these early periods of Trump, the number one thing that was pushed was Trump's body language. Look how he's shaking their hand. Look how he shakes their hand and he rings them to him, and look at his body language. Wow, he's so domineering. Wow, like look at that. You can just see it. He's pulling people to him like he's the man in the room. And what did we get with this Jewish President Trump? Mark Levin is literally manhandling this guy. And let me see if I can pull this up as aggro to put up on screen before I have to go. I mean, just wow. Let me put this up so you can see it on this freeze frame here. And there's like a better photo you can see from like straight on. Yeah, we're like the pulling it. And so like, what does that say, right? And if anything, I will say it didn't even catch me off guard at first. I wasn't thinking about it, but I saw it from Drew Hernandez and I was like, is this the first person that we've seen like truly being manhandled or truly manhandling Trump in like a very public way? So I guess what does that say, right? Where's the power in the room on that one? And obviously, I think that it's only pushed and inflamed the rumors even more that Trump converted some time ago to Judaism, being inflamed by the fact that his daughter did convert. There's been push by Jared Kushner, the Chabad Lubavitchers, and then now you add on this, and it's true, right? Trump says in response to Mark Levin calling him our first Jewish president. It's aggressive. And I do seriously expect there to be a very strong push to clean things up, whether it's on X, on YouTube, etc., from all the anti-Semitism, and especially if they start pushing this for war with Iran. I do strongly fear how quickly this may come unraveled. But with that, guys, it's probably the end of what I'll cover for today. And again, tomorrow I should have a video out tomorrow. I'm not sure what topic I'll make that about. But at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Nav Creators, it should be me, Zeb. I would imagine Josh will be there, maybe John as well. 9 p.m. where I have a conversation with Adam the Angler, and we'll cover Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, his FOIA request, being assaulted by his own sheriffs over his Israel post, as well as his call-in to confirm if Tim Pool's residence was actually shot at. So it should be pretty cool. Me and him may disagree a lot. You might actually find out the Zeb and him are going to agree, and I might be the lone one, odd man out in that conversation. But we'll see. But with that, I appreciate you guys. As always, I'm rooting for you guys. As always, Christ is King, as always, and will always be. And seek first the kingdom of God. Make sure you guys are pursuing, and you are reading your Bibles. You are pursuing the truth, the relationship, and the love that is Jesus Christ. It matters more than literally anything else you could spend your time on, and I cannot articulate that strongly enough. And beyond there, deport Kash Patel, jail him at this point, send him back to India, whatever we have to do to get him out of office. Dan Bongino, if he limps his way back to the podcasting network, he will get ruthlessly brutalized by myself, and I would imagine many other people too. And ban Pam Bondi from public life, along with any other woman that is over 100 pounds. Chain them to the kitchen. Do not let them leave. And Lord willing, guys, we will one day get our country back. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.